Timestamp 0.
Yes, sir.
In 3, 2, 1, go. And
So
I think part of the frustration as well is, and it's not really the show's fault with this season because Steve is still technically like a supporting character, which feels weird to see. But he doesn't get enough screen time to do anything. Like he just shows up to do something bad and then disappears again until the show needs him again.
I don't know. Doesn't bother me. Like I said, the payoff is so good that I think the journey there is fine. But so when we
You guys
start
are
the
like two.
episodes,
Stop doing that.
so when we start the episodes and you get that Netflix logo with like the upside down background, like that's been added later, right? That wasn't there when the show first dropped in 2016.
I don't.
Like I'm pretty sure that was added later.
It might have been. I don't remember.
Because now the Netflix logo thing does where it like zooms out and you get like the rainbow colors and stuff. I mean, I'm pretty sure that wasn't
I feel like
a
they just
thing.
had the normal like in for Netflix with the sound.
Mhm.
I think that's what also makes this season feel weird. Is like this is the only season that Steve doesn't really have anything to do with anything else going on.
Yeah, but again, like it's not a problem for me because, like you said, like he's a supporting character. He's not
Yeah.
one of the main
Listen,
people we're following.
listen. Okay, I need him to do everything in the show. Kidding, kidding. No, but I think that's why some of that feels so forced. Is he's the side character that's supposed to be annoying and do the bad things, so that you like Nancy telling him to fuck off. It's like no,
I,
that's not
I
how that
I
works.
never read that scene that way. I've never read that scene that way.
Ah, Dustin, my boy.
He's really good. That was a little too TV dramatic. You need to leave right now.
To be
It's like
fair, he was
it's
running. He's
funny.
out of breath. No, I
Not
love
saying
that.
it's a
If
bad
anyone asks, I've left the country.
thing. Yeah, so this is where we get our big over ET set piece where they're on the run. And like I said, if she made the bikes fly, I think that might be a bridge too far.
Well, you wouldn't do it here. You just do it like earlier.
Yeah, maybe just a more whimsical moment. But what they do with this, I think, is great. I think the payoff we get is pretty awesome.
You haven't seen Psycho Gorman yet, have you?
I am not.
That movie is What If E.T. was an actual monster?
Mm.
And it's hilarious. Oh, no, it's sorry. What if E.T. was like an evil, like actual monster, and the kids that found him were sociopaths?
That's a good premise.
It's great. That movie's hysterical.
When they start cutting through the neighborhood, I just want this to start escalating to a ridiculous degree. Like they go through a construction yard, it just keeps building and building. They go through a theme park.
Yeah,
There's a fair somewhere. It just doesn't stop. But yeah, this part is pretty awesome.
that is awesome. No, Christopher Nolan, eat your heart out.
Woo. 11, you've killed so many people. It is a little contrived that just ends the car chase, though. Where it's like, oh no, we can't drive around to this truck. I guess we'll just stop. Just let him go. That's fine.
Why is he wearing a headset? They're all right there.
Yeah, it hasn't felt like taking it off yet.
No, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but my favorite thing to complain about with the Avengers is that they're all somehow communicating in that first movie, and none of them are wearing like any kind of earpiece or anything.
Friends. Friends forever.
This is like the power of God in anime bullshit.
Friends for eternity, loyalty and honesty, friends forever. It's just yeah, it's like after the last two episodes are definitely like the weak ones of the season. I wouldn't say they're bad. Like there's good stuff in those episodes, but here it's like, okay, now we're back. Now we're back to the great because these next two episodes are great. So it's like, okay. We're
Boy
past the
Steve
weakest
is
part
going to
of
get
the
a
season.
shining moment next episode.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is one of those weird shows where at some point, like, most of the characters just have nothing interesting to do. So I latched onto Steve as a character, and he became my favorite.
A lot of people did. He became the big fan favorite.
And as you might have noticed,
And
I have some hot takes about Steve in this first season.
yeah, but also I don't know if more people would agree with you, but that's the difference between this being a binge show and a weekly show. Is if this came out weekly, I think you would be seeing a lot more in-depth conversations about like that one subplot and all
No,
that. I
so
think you would be seeing more arguments about
every comment I have seen has always said Steve starts as such a shitty person and gets better. I'm like, I don't think he was that shitty to begin with. The show wants you to think he is.
I remember just being confused because again, I guess this must have been after season 2 came out because I think going into the show, I heard what a fan favorite Steve was, and I was just confused. But I was like, I mean, he's fine, and then he did some douchey things, and then it wasn't until like the very end of season 1 where I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. And then season 2, he becomes one of the best. Like, I love this stuff in season 2. And man, like, I love the tension in these scenes between Hopper and Jonathan. And it's like, oh right, like and then we never
But
get to see
see,
those characters on screen together again. I want
no, I
more of
agree with
that.
you. But this is also my point. Nancy is contributing nothing to just sitting there at the police station when she could be, oh, I don't know, talking to Steve. Like,
well, her mom's not gonna let her go. Or wait, maybe her mom's. No, it's Joyce with them. Okay, but yeah,
no, she's just been sitting there, probably, let's say, for at least an hour.
look, dude, she just went to another fucking dimension. It was almost eaten by Slender Man like a day and a half ago. Like she's
About the
not in.
relationship, just be a decent human. Like,
She's going through a lot right now, man. Oh, Ted,
hey,
the
it's the
real
thing.
MVP of the show. Hey. I don't know why that's such a weird like universal child ritual, like building forts, with like cushions
I
and
never
blankets
did
stuff. I
that.
I did. I don't know why it's such a thing, but a
I
lot of
don't know
kids
why
do.
I never did.
Hmm. Did you ever play The Floor Is Lava?
So the thing with my childhood is I didn't grow up with any siblings. Like I had them, but I didn't grow up with
Hmm.
them. So no, I grew up with two grandparents. I watched TV, listened to music, and played video games.
that's still pretty cool.
Yeah. And even like when I got a little bit older and like I made friends, we just like watch movies or play games.
Hmm.
Like I have one brother I've met exactly twice.
Wow, that's crazy.
He dies in season 4, right?
Yeah, and it's a good scene. It's good. I mean that's the part of that subplot I like though is Matthew Modine gets a lot more to do. Like he's really good. Uh, I just think the show wants me to sympathize with him more than I do. It's like no, this guy's a
I mean, I
monster.
think that's a problem in all 4 seasons to some degree. They will pick a character and they want you to feel a certain way about this character, but I don't think it ever lines up like, eh, but I remember when they did this, or I don't know, you're, I don't know.
Do you feel that way about Billy?
Um, so I have this weird thing where I like Billy for what he is, but I think I have a different reading on him than anyone else. Where I like him exclusively as a mirror to Steve and as an antagonist to Steve. Um, but I've seen a lot of people have either two reactions. One, they hate him because they think he's racist, or
Which
two,
there's a degree of that.
there's certainly a degree of that, but you're also not. But I also think those people aren't stopping to think A, the time period, and B, his
Yep.
upbringing.
Yep.
Or I see the people, and this was a big thing at the time, where Steve and Billy was the popular thing. And I think it's gross.
Yeah. Well, with Billy, that's where that difference between like sympathy and empathy. It's like no, you can empathize with the character and like understand how they turned out the way they did, and that still doesn't excuse the horrible things they've done. Like, and usually the best way to pull that off is a literal self-sacrifice, a death, which is what they do with Billy. So it's like, yeah, that doesn't excuse like all your previous shitty behavior, but it at least gets the character out
But
on a
also,
high note that does work for me on some
well, and my
level.
thing with Billy has always been
But
I don't mind the
I like that.
self-sacrifice, but I think he's most interesting as an antagonist. So I don't mind that he's a dick because I think that's supposed to be his role.
Yeah.
To compare it to Steve in this season, I think sometimes Steve is played as supposed to be the antagonist to Jonathan and Nancy, but it doesn't work for me because he's not really being like mean until he's pushed to that point.
Mm. And
Because
with
everything he does to
Billy,
either
though,
one of them is in response to something that they did to him.
that he jumped to conclusions on. But with Billy, it's like you do get that kind of germ of his backstory and how he turned like when we get to see more of his interactions with his father. Where with Steve, he has a father who just doesn't really give a shit about him other than just you're my name, you're my legacy, you're gonna take over my business one day. It's like that's why you exist. That's your role is to keep my name, and so but otherwise he's a bit absentee. Like it just doesn't really give a shit about him. So that's Steve's relationship with his father. And then when we get to see Billy's relationship with his father, it's like, oh, this is a really toxic,
Yeah.
aggressive,
Well, and then you
physical
get that
man.
stuff in season 3 with his mom.
Abandoning him, yeah, and like so you do get like those pieces of okay, this is why he turned out the way he did.
Well,
And
even
again,
in season 2, like he, in his own way, he does care about Max.
Mhm.
But again, like I said, I don't mind him being a dick because I see him as an antagonist.
Yeah, like me saying I empathize with him isn't. I don't mean to like put him up on a pedestal or say like, oh no, he was a great guy the whole time. It's like no, he has a degree of a redemption and a tragic. There's a tragedy to his story that works for me, but it still doesn't excuse a lot of his shitty behavior.
Yeah, exactly. This is probably my favorite Steve scene this season.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
But see, this is what I mean is more so it's like, and I think part of it is the prop because he is a side character. Oftentimes he does feel like an afterthought in this season. But it's like it's not. I guess that's not entirely fair, just because he's not a main character yet. It's just this. I want more of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even if I agreed with you on the previous episode that the show was wanting to paint Steve as more of the villain for the audience, this is clearly the big turning point where it's like, no, like he's the reasonable one in the scene, and he's finally having that big step in growth. But it's like, no, like, and I think the show has been. It's not like his friends have been cool. Like his friends have always been hateable. Like they've always been douchebags. So, and here we're just escalating that. But now we've fully framed like, oh no, these people really suck, and we're getting the most clear picture of what Steve really is. So yeah, stuff like that's great. And it makes me sad that we don't see these dipshits get eaten by a Demogorgon in the next episode. Because fuck you, I wanted that catharsis.
I think to make this all work, again, you need another Nancy and Steve conversation here somewhere. I don't care if it's after he gets rid of his friends or before, but it's just frustrating when they keep contriving reasons to keep them separated from having that conversation.
Like, right now, like, there is a lot of shit going on right now. Like, that's not top priority. It's all these FBI guys everywhere. People are missing.
Right now, yes.
Like, yeah.
But I don't believe for a second that she couldn't have gone after him in the previous scene and been like, listen, this is what's happening.
Like I said, that's just not where her head's at. There's other shit going on. I think we've gone in circles on this enough.
We have. I'm sorry. That grinds my gears.
Hey, look,
I'm letting my own biases shine on that one. I know, but it is what it is.
Well, you seem to have like more of a love-hate relationship with Nancy than any other character on this show.
I just think her writing is inconsistent. Like they really want me to believe that she's this altruistic, good person, or maybe not good person, but like she's trying to make up for things and like she's genuinely a good person. But then for 2/3 of the show, she kind of treats everyone like trash. I don't think I really like Nancy until season 4.
Yeah, good stuff. And that's the thing, like, but like from season 1 to season 4, she's just like never one of my favorite characters. Like, I think she's probably at her most interesting in this season, but like she's just never been one of my favorites. So,
and I think the part of the problem with that, my issue with it is I really like those two, like her and Steve's chemistry on screen, and I think it's let down by sometimes CW level writing.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I just in this season less so, but like in season 2 and 3, her and Jonathan are just boring, and they get so much screen time.
And but in this situation with his walkie-talkies, this is what I like about period piece settings, where it's like if you're gonna make something a period piece, like the story should really justify it. Where it's like you can't make this story work in 2024, with smartphones and shit. But like this is why I don't mind the last episode, because then we get this. This is one of my favorite Steve moments.
Great moment. The only time that these two are ever involved in the main plot.
Except for the last season, or season 4, when the satanic panic stuff kicks in, and they're like, "Oh shit, this is getting bad."
I forgot they're even involved in that.
That's gonna make revisiting season 4 interesting, because some of that stuff is cool, but Midnight Mass and other shows handle some of those themes better. So I don't know how well that's going to play, but there is a lot of stuff I like in season 4. Like
And I don't think we've ever
did
talked
like
about it, but I find that whole satanic panic of the '80s very fascinating. As someone who primarily listens to metal,
Well, and it feels like so not taboo anymore. It's like, yeah, people just listen to metal. Like, I don't. There's anything you think
well,
about.
but I mean, I think that's just as time moves, right? In the
yeah.
I don't know the timeline here, but like in the '50s, it was Elvis. Was it '50s? I don't know when he was like really big, but
I think he hit the scene in the '40s.
But my point is, the pearl clutchers always find something to clutch their pearls at.
Yeah, the Beatles in the '60s, you know. It's
but
always
I feel
about
like
the youth. It's always about how they're corrupting the youth, and it just keeps getting more.
But it's interesting because I feel like we've hit that point where, at least in entertainment, there's nothing left to clutch your pearls at.
Some people try. But yes, those voices are dwindling because it's like, yeah,
they've moved on to other things, but we won't get into that right now.
Yeah.
No, I like all this. We're finally past the like petty drama.
Mm-hmm. Hopper, the win.
Let's go.
Like, the only thing that makes me sad about my viewing experience with the show, though, is that I didn't get to watch the show like as a 13-year-old. You know, because like I said, I think the show plays very differently, like depending on the age you are when you see it.
I also don't know. I mean, I can only speak from my own experience. I don't know if I would have liked this at 13.
I maybe not. Like, who knows?
I was still kind of in that period of like I had two moods: Dragon Ball Z, action, or like Jason X schlock.
And this is one of the really satisfying examples of having like 3 or 4 subplots and all that. This is how you do an ensemble. Like, you have all these mini ensembles, and then they do the big.
And they've forgotten how to do this by the last season.
Yep.
Which is funny because I don't even think that's an issue in season 3. Like all the plots come together really well in that one too.
Well, and one of the problems people have with season 2 that I disagree with is that Mike and 11 are split up for most of the season, because it's like the group dynamic should be a little different. That's where it's at least
I never had a problem
entirely
with
a repeat of season 1. Maybe it takes too long to get there by the end, with them.
I think the biggest problem is just everything that 11 is doing in that season isn't interesting.
I like the stuff with Hopper early on, but you're right. Like, it just doesn't move. It just moves slowly. And then we do the side tangent with her that doesn't really go anywhere in the grand scheme.
Yeah, and I think in the grand scheme that's the problem. It's just like, well, you were building to this backdoor pilot that didn't take off, so now it's just like, remember this?
But even then, like, if we brought that character back, her sister, in season 3 or season 4, and made her important to the plot, then it wouldn't be inconsequential. But now we're heading into the final season. It's like, I mean, maybe they'll bring her back, but
I will cry foul if they do this. If they do that at this point,
if they do, she might only in like 1 or 2 episodes. But
she'll be brutally murdered in like first 5 minutes.
This episode is also gonna set up something that I'm really sad we never pay off much throughout this show. Is Joyce's connection to 11, because she understands that what 11 needs is a mom. She's the first person.
I don't know if I'd say that we don't pay that off. She adopts her.
No. It's not that we don't pay it off. It's like we never see them have screen time together. It's like we never get to see what that relationship is, right? Because we immediately start in season 4 with Joyce getting involved in the Hopper plot with Russia.
That's fair.
And then by like episode 3, 11 is off with Brenner or whatever, and like Joyce doesn't even know because she's going to Russia. Like that's my issue is we never get to like explore that relationship. Like we never really get to see what their mother daughter
Remember the
dynamic is like.
thing?
I do.
Oh, it is this season. Okay, it is the next season. This is the scene where he gets the call and he's on a date.
Oh yeah, this seems great. Now again, it's very fun and great, but it's like this is relatively short after that movie came out. Like, how does this guy know all these behind the scenes details? Also, did he rent it? Was it already available to rent on home video? I don't know. I don't know these things. I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, I don't know. This is gonna sound kind of weird given my age, but I've already kind of forgotten what the like pre almost instant home video, like home media release was like.
Yeah, because you'd have to wait like 6 months for stuff to be available to
I
rent, and even then,
I don't know if you have this.
Flopped.
I don't know if you have this, but like now it's hard to imagine back then. Even though I lived some of it.
Yeah, and I did too. Like I remember what it was like going to Blockbuster and having to rent stuff. My family was also a bit slower on like evolving technology. Like it took us a while to get into DVD. You know, it took us a while to start like building up more of our own collection. Or like cable, like we mainly just had, it took us a minute to get into streaming. So I also grew up in a family where we were a bit slower to like catch up. But so, yeah, no, it's
interesting that you mentioned that because I also kind of had that. I didn't have cable until I was 10.
Wow.
And that's when I moved in with my mom and my parents split up. So like all those a lot of the shows that I watched had to be on basic, like, you know, WB4 Kids. I don't know if you guys have that. Had that. I'm sure you had some version of it. Or I would watch it on VHS tape. Like, I had all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 1 on VHS tape. That's how I watched it.
That's awesome.
And I had almost the entire Dragon Ball Z series on VHS tape. And yeah, that was back when they did the, like, connecting pictures. So if you collected it all, you got a nice piece of picture. Cool.
No, my dad avoided buying like VHS tapes for shows as much as possible. We had so many blank tapes where we just record stuff off the TV and sometimes re-record or pay over. But that's most of my TV watching stuff was like recorded. God, we had so many blank VHS tapes.
That is the way I first watched the Buffy movie.
Oh.
Which is not very good, but it's an interesting like piece of work. It's like, what is it like to watch, you know, the Buffy nobody remembers?
It's like seeing an unaired pilot, you know? Like, oh, here's the original version they shot before they made the real one.
Because I can't think of any other like show that is a sequel / remake of a movie that became a phenomenon when the movie was a flop.
Right. That's very specific. I'm sure I can think of something.
That movie has an insane cast, by the way.
Oh, yeah, there's some notable names in it. And this is
a very good sibling conversation.
Oh, thank you. This is one of my favorite Mike and Nancy scenes, and it makes me really sad that we don't get a lot of Mike and Nancy scenes after this, because I want to see their relationship grow as siblings.
At least once or twice every season.
Yeah, you get a little bit.
My favorite is like the beginning of season 4, where she's like, if you don't get out of bed, I'm leaving you behind. But it's also weird because he's aged like 10 years and she's aged like 2.
Yeah. And that's what's funny. Well, that's what's unique about a show like this, where obviously the actors are a lot older than the characters are supposed to be, but still, like most movies set in high school, like we still cast people in their 20s. So it's not like it's unusual but we usually try to cast people who look young. And in the case of the Stranger Things cast, like you can't control how those kids age because some have matured a lot more than others. Like
No, I'm
Sadie's
just
thing, like Max, I think has just gotten taller, but like she still looks. You know what I mean? It's like she just looks taller to me, but other ones like look like completely different people or look
yeah,
like 25.
it's just funny because obviously the younger kids are gonna have much more drastic changes than the
Mhm.
already adult cast.
Right, especially when they were like 20, 21, maybe 19.
The only time that I've ever had a
When they
problem with
shot.
casting is, ironically, the Star Wars prequels. It's really awkward to have Natalie Portman in all three,
Why would
but
you
then
do that?
you recast Anakin to make him older. Like, why didn't you just make them the same age?
It's so weird.
Well, and I've always said that the first mistake the prequels made is starting with Episode 1. Episode 2 should have been Episode 1, but obviously not boring. And then Episode 2 should have been a Clone Wars movie. And then Episode 3 stays
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah, those are like just two different thought experience. Like the way I usually approach film, like analytically or thinking like, well, how would I have fixed it or what they could have done? I usually am in the mindset of just what I have and how what they did just could have been better or improved. And then there's a whole other hypothetical of like, okay, if for some reason I was in charge of how they did the prequels, like this is how I'd structure it. And yeah, it would be completely
I just
different.
don't know how you fix that. They meet when he's like 8 and she's already an adult.
Well, the character Anakin is 9 and the character Padme is 14. So there's about a 5-year age gap, which
Oh, I didn't realize she was that young.
But Natalie Portman in real life was like 16 or 17. But she's playing a 14-year-old. So in real life, there's this big gap between her and Jake Lloyd. And then he gets episode 2, and then Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen are like the same age.
Yeah, no, it's really awkward.
It's like, oh. And it's less, again, I'm not saying I do it, but if you start Anakin, but he's like 11 or 12, like it's at least better. Because you'd still have to recast, but then that's at least not as drastic of an age gap between the two.
I will admit, as a reviewer, I think my biggest weakness is just not being able to overcome my bias. Like, if I like something, I want more of that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I have that plenty of stuff.
Which, if you haven't noticed, is one of my biggest issues this season.
And have you ever watched that casting audition tape for young Anakin, like with some of the other kids they were testing?
I have not.
Before they got Jake Lloyd. I don't know the kid's name, but there's this one kid who's like 10 or 11, and he's just nailing that audition. Like he's just got that look in his eyes, like that world weariness where you're like, that's the kid. That's the one. And Lucas didn't pick him for some reason. I don't know why.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall during the prequel meetings.
And like most kids aren't very good actors, and that's not their fault. It's just a lack of experience.
I also don't think Jake Lloyd is that bad in episode 1.
He's not like the worst I've ever seen, but he's not good at it.
The reaction to him was vastly.
But yeah, it's just weird though. But when a kid has it and can do it, you're like, that's something special. And why didn't you cast that one? Never understand it. But this is the scene though where I'm like, maybe we went too far with what we did to Barbara. Because holy shit. It's better if she's just eaten by a Demogorgon and that's done. But no, she got fucking like face huggered by vines. It was an alien host. It gave babies, I guess. Like it's this horrible, disgusting fate that this character didn't deserve.
I did not realize that was the idea. I just thought that nature had started to overcome the body.
Well, because what's happened to her is what almost happens to Will. Because when they find Will in the next episode, remember, like he has like that vine in his mouth. Where
I guess that leads me to more questions of like, how is he still alive and she's not?
Because she was there longer. Because they found her immediately, and the implication I think is she just fucking died and aliens burst out. Like we never see that process, but remember in season 2 Will is vomiting up the little slugs that turn into Demogorgon dogs.
Well, and the idea I think is also is Will is like hiding for a long time. Like he's really good at hiding.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's still
No, it's coming together. It's coming together.
Yeah, he's still hiding.
It's all coming together.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
No, he's definitely caught, I think, at this point, right?
I think that's the cliffhanger of this episode, is when the Demogorgon gets him. But at this point, like, it's already had Barb for days, you know, so she's dead.
Do you buy that at this point, because we know it's retroactive, but, like, there's somebody in charge of the Demogorgon in this?
That's what's weird. That's a whole other thing that I'm just not thinking about when I'm watching this season. It's like, that comes later. Where we explain what the Upside Down is and what these creatures are, and, like, I don't know if I fully buy it.
I just don't think you should have explained it. Like, you can just have somebody be in, like, the lead, but you don't, like, a big bad for them to fight. You don't need...
Well, he doesn't create the Demogorgon. Because when we see Vecna get to the Upside Down for the first time, and it's not, like, and it's all just, like, rocks and
well, no,
chaos.
it's
like,
the Mind Flayer that creates them, right?
But doesn't he create the Mind Flayer?
I thought the Mind Flayer... I thought he worked for the Mind Flayer.
I thought he created it and was controlling it, but one of us is wrong.
I am not up to date on my D&D lore. I think at this is the one point where I get that she's emotional, but you have to have some resemblance of, like, thought. You have another kid, like, I know he's almost an adult, but come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, it's such a heightened situation. You know, it's not a problem.
But I think the problem is that we're supposed to care for these characters until they start acting heightened, like acting like this.
No, everything with Joyce tracks for me.
It tracks. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't track. I just wish that they could write, even in tense situations, like, have at least someone keep their head.
Well, these characters have all had a very stressful, weird week.
So what is the symbolism of them sitting in front of the tiger?
They need the eye of the tiger.
Dude, if Rocky was... I'm just saying, if Rocky was here, this would all be solved in one season. He'd just be like, hey, yo, Demogorgon. You know what I'm saying?
Have you watched that the director's cut of Rocky 4 yet?
No. I want to see that, and then there's a director's cut of Rocky Balboa. Which
I'm less interested in until I hear about what exactly is changed or added. Because there's, like, one good deleted scene that I'd want put back in, but there's other deleted scenes that are like, yeah, I get why you cut that.
No, it's just weird to do a director's cut of that one, because that one's a good movie. Because
everyone loves it. Yeah, like, it's... I don't need one. I highly doubt it's as drastic of a different cut as the Rocky 4 one is. But my favorite difference between the theatrical cut of Rocky 4 and the director's cut is in the theatrical cut of Rocky 4, he straight up ends the Cold War. And in the director's cut, it seems like he just escalated and started World War III. Because when the Russians who are watching the fight, instead of clapping for Rocky, they get up and they look very angry and pissed off and just walk out. And you're like, oh no. No. This is going to go very bad.
See, that's what I mean is, like, with that situation, because they just both got caught. You need one of them to be...
You need an adult not there. Yeah. I mean, it works out in the next episode, so whatever.
Yeah, but I also think that's where some of the complaints of plot armor start to come in, is everyone's acting like a moron, but it all works out in the end.
Yeah, that does happen in the show.
Will, you're looking a little rough there, buddy. But then in season 4, they'll go to the Upside Down. It's fine. Oh
Well,
my god!
at least still in season 4, they like go in with a plan and aren't in there as long.
But time
Uh,
also moves differently there, we know, in season 4.
mhm. Yeah, we'll get to it when we get
Which
to it. But I
breaks
was
my
watching some.
brain. I don't know how that works.
Oh, I don't either.